All right, all right, all right. It's not ESPN's 30 for 30, but it is my 98 for 90, 98 seasons in history of the New York Football Giants. Just brief overviews of the seasons as we go along here. All 98 seasons. I'm going to try to get it done 98 days. That's probably not happening. But I'm trying to get it done for the September 10th, which is the beginning of the regular season for the Giants. So hopefully I get it done by then. But we're fortunate in our way. We're more than halfway through now, through the 40s. We're at 1946, which just happened to be the 22nd season in the history of the New York Football Giants. 22nd season for the Giants, 27th season in the history of the NFL. Giants started in 25, NFL started in 1920. It's a very good season for the Giants. Unfortunately, it seems like every time there's a championship game, there's always a story, always something kind of going on, always something happening. And in this one, this championship game was a boomer. The story, the scandal that went on in this championship game was a boomer. As I was saying in some of my previous videos over the past past couple of seasons, you're going to start noticing things were changing. The Giants and the Redskins were very dominant in the Eastern Division as far as going to the championship game. From 1933 to 46, the Redskins and the Giants were the only two teams from the Eastern Division that went to the championship games. That's going to change. The Redskins went to the championship game in 1945, and that is the they wound up losing to the Cleveland Rams 15-14. So at 1945 was the final season that the Redskins would go to a championship game until 1972. The Giants were in the championship game this year, 1946, and that would be the last championship game they will go to until 1956. The Bears are in a championship game this year, 1946. The Bears went to a ton of championship games in the 30s and the 40s. This will be the last championship game for the Bears until 1956. Things will start changing. The Rams are going to start going a couple championship games. Even the Chicago Cardinals are going to go to a couple championship games. And not only that, but they're going to win one of them. I mean, you know how unbelievably pathetic that is. The Cardinals, their only championship, 1947. Wow, holy cow! Let's see. The Lions are going to start going to some championship games in the 50s. You're going to notice in the Eastern Division, the Eagles are going to start. They're going to go to the next 3 championship games. Then after that, the Cleveland Browns is. In 1946, the All-American Football Conference started up, and the Cleveland Browns were there. After 1949, the All-American Football Conference, the AAFC, disbanded, and a few teams went to the NFL, the Cleveland Browns being one of them. They came into the Eastern Division with the Giants, and they were good. They were so good. They started going to all the championship games in the early and mid 50s. From 1950 to 1957, the Cleveland Browns went to every championship game except for one. So things are starting to change. The Giants aren't going to be going to a championship game for a while. The Redskins won't be going for a long time. So the Packers are going to start stinking. The Bears won't be going to one for a while. So new blood's going to be going into the championship games. But that's next season. Right now, we're talking about 1946. It was an exciting season for the Giants. Very, very, very exciting season. The 1946 season was the 27th regular season of the National Football League. Before this season, Elmer Layden resigned. He was the NFL commissioner, and Bert Bell, co-founder of the Philadelphia Eagles, replaced him. Meanwhile, the All-American Football Conference was formed to rival the NFL, and the Rams became the first NFL team based on the West Coast after they relocated from Cleveland. Ohio. They went to Los Angeles, California. A regular season game was played on Tuesday, the last regular season game that was played on a Tuesday until 2010 season on October 1st between New York and Boston. The season ended with Chicago Bears defeated the Giants in the NFL championship game. The NFL draft. The 1946 NFL draft was held on January 14th, 1946 at New York's Commodore Hotel. With the first pick, the Boston Yanks selected quarterback Frank Dantzowitz from the University of Notre Dame. Major rule changes. A forward pass that strikes the goalpost is automatically ruled incomplete. That was the deciding factor in the championship game the year before 1945 between the Cleveland Rams and the Washington Redskins. Sammy Baugh dropped back to pass in his own end zone, threw the ball, hit the goalpost, and it fell down and it landed in the end zone and was declared a safety. Those were the rules back then. So the Cleveland Rams got 2 points because of that. The Cleveland Rams won the championship game by 1 point. Had that rule been changed and it was a forward pass was incomplete if it hit the goalpost, the Washington Redskins would have won the championship game. There's always a story, always something. Let's see, this is sometimes known as the Baugh-Marshall rule. After the Washington Redskins quarterback Sammy Baugh and team owner George Preston Marshall in the previous year's championship game, the Rams scored a safety when Baugh, attempting a pass from his own end zone, hit the goalpost. The 2 points provided the margin of victory as the Rams won the championship game 15-14, while Marshall was so outraged at the outcome that he was a major force in passing the rule change. The free substitution rule was repealed, and substitutions were limited to no more than 3 players at a time. Yeah, that's it. Well, the receiving team is permitted to return punts and missed field goal attempts from behind their own goal line. The penalty for an invalid fair catch signal is 5 yards from the spot of the signal. A fair catch signal is valid when it is made while the ball is in flight. Division races. In the Eastern Division, the Giants, the Eagles, and Steelers all had 4-2 records in Week 7 and 11. It was an 11-week season. While in the Western Division, the Bears' 10-7 win over the Packers on November 3rd put them a game ahead of the Rams. In Week 8, the Giants beat the Eagles 45-17. The Steelers lost to the Lions 17-7, and the Bears beat the Rams 27-21 to widen their lead. In Week 9, saw the Giants tie Boston 28-28. I mean, the Boston Yanks were 2-8-1, and the Giants didn't really matter. The Giants tied Boston 28-20, put the Giants at 5-2-1, while the Steelers beat the Eagles 10-7 to be a half game behind at 5-3-1. The two teams met in New York in Week 10, and the Giants' 7-0 win put them in front again. The final week of the season had the 6-3-1 Giants hosting the 5-4-1 Redskins. A Washington win would have given both teams a 6-4-1 record and forced a playoff. That became a moot point. And then after New York's 31-0 win in front of 60,000 people at the Polo Grounds, more than 58,346 that went there for the championship game a week later. So there was almost 120,000 people in the stands for 2 consecutive games the Giants saw. I'd say the league leaders. Sid Luckman of the Chicago Bears led the league with 1,826 yards passing. Bill Dudley of Pittsburgh led the league in rushing with 604 yards, and receiving Jim Benton of the Los Angeles Rams had 981 yards receiving. I mean, that's pretty impressive in 11 games season. Almost 100 yards a game receiving. Pretty impressive. And the Joseph F. Carr Trophy for the most valuable player went to Bill Dudley, the halfback for Pittsburgh. The draft, the NFL draft. The 1946 NFL Draft was held on January 14, 1946 at the Commodore Hotel in New York City. The selections were initially withheld from the public out of fear that the newly formed All-American Football Conference would sign away players selected high. With the first overall pick of the draft, the Boston Yanks selected quarterback Frank Dancewitz, the most notable draft choice in this year's players meeting was made by the Washington Redskins and remains one of the biggest draft blunders of all time. They chose Cal Rossi with the 9th overall pick, but Rossi, a junior at UCLA, was not eligible to be drafted. Ooh. They chose him again in 1947 annual draft, but he never played professional football. Wow. But, I mean, it also goes to show you, I mean, they kind of got screwed because they drafted him in 1947 again, and he never played. Well, that's here it is about the New York Giants. Where we had 5 Hall of Famers drafted in this draft, and one of them was George Connor. The Giants drafted George Connor in the pick number 5 overall in the first round. He was a tackle from Notre Dame. He never played for the Giants. He went back to school. I think his father was sick. I think it was, and I think he wanted to be back with his father. So he went back to school. He was from the Notre Dame area. I think he was from the Chicago area. But Chicago is relatively close to Notre Dame, and so he went back to school. And when he came out, he started playing for the Bears. I have no idea how that works out. How somebody gets drafted by it. I don't know. I don't understand that. You get drafted by a team, you go back to school, and you come out and you start playing for another team. I don't understand that. But the Giants did draft George Connor. He was a Hall of Famer. He was a tackle. Very good. Very, very good. Really would have helped the Giants out immensely, but he never played for him. He started playing for the Bears. Anyway, there was 32 rounds in the draft. Each team got to select 30 players. Now, the way it wound up working out, as it had the previous 4 or 5 years, to get some parity in the league. Round 1, all 10 teams got a chance to pick. Round 2, the 5 worst teams from the year before were the only teams to pick in round 2. So the Giants were one of those 5 teams. They picked Buck Jones, a guard from Wake Forest, with pick 15 overall. Then we have round 3, all 10 teams picked. Round 4, round 4, the 5 worst teams from the year before picked. So the Giants in round 4 picked Paul Duke, a center from Georgia Tech. Round 3, they picked Hosea Rogers, a back from North Carolina, or Hosea. Let's see here. Round 5, I'll go over the first 10 picks. The Giants in round 5 took Pete Stout, a back from TCU. Round 6, the Giants took Jim Lalekis, I think it's how you might pronounce it, a tackle from Brown. Jim Pyler, in round 7, they took a tackle from Texas. Round 8, they took Gene Roberts, a back from Chattanooga. Round 9, they took Mike Harris, a guard from Mississippi State. And in round 10, they took Walt Clay, a back from Colorado. Now, they took Eugene Choo-Choo Roberts. He was an All-American. He was American football for the Giants at the National Football League. He played 4 years for the Giants. Roberts left the Giants in 1915, played for the Canadian Football League and the Montreal Alouettes in 1951 and Ottawa Rough Riders in 52 to 54. Let's see. He set the NFL and the New York Giants single-game rushing record with 218 yards on November 12, 1950, which was broken by Tiki Barber. But Roberts, the guy that took Choo-Choo Roberts, the Giants selected. Just a little trivia pursuit question here. Is the only person to lead the NCAA, the NFL, and the CFL in scoring. He led the NCAA in scoring. Not sure which year. Could have been 1946. But he led the NCAA in scoring. He's the only person ever. He led the NFL in scoring with 102 points in 1949, and he led the CFL in scoring with 88 points in 1953. So that's a little Trivial Pursuit question here. Gene Roberts, the Giants selected him. All right, and he just happened to be a Pro Bowler, but he only played 4 seasons for the Giants. So he was a good pick for the Giants, but he only played 4 seasons. So the Giants, I mean, there was nothing really super spectacular about their season. They did, I mean, their defense was okay. They gave up some points. They did score some points though, which really helped. Obviously, what do we got here? The Giants scored 21.5 points per game. They gave up 14.7. So basically, they scored 7 more points per game than what they gave up. So, yeah, you obviously you do that, you're gonna have success. The Giants wound up with the 7-3-1 record. Steve Owen was the coach. His time would be he'll be there till 1953. But once again, the Giants, when they start their season, they always started their games on the road. The season on the road. Now, they usually started anywhere from the first 2 to the first 4 games on the road because they shared the Polo Grounds with the New York Baseball Giants. And I think basically it was they wanted to make sure that the baseball season was over with and quite possibly the World Series would be over with before the New York Football Giants took the field and started just chewing it up. So the Giants' first 3 games of the season were all on the road. First game of the year, they played the Boston Yanks, and they beat them 17-0 on October 1st, which happened to be it was a Tuesday game, October 1st, which just happened to be the last Tuesday game played until 2010. So they played a Tuesday game. Giants and the Boston Yanks in 1946. Go figure. There was no Monday Night Football back then. Hard to believe, I know. So on the Sunday, October 6th, the Giants were on the road. They played the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they won 17-14. The following week, they went on the road, and they played Washington, and they lost 24-14. So after 3 games, the Giants are now 2-1. Then they finally came home, played their first game at home. They won 28-24 over the Chicago Cardinals on October 20th. The following week, now this one's a little kind of key here, which kind of makes you kind of wonder things a little bit here, right? The following week, the New York Giants played at home against the Chicago Bears, a team that they would wind up playing in the championship game. The Giants would win 14-0. The Giants were at home in the Polo Grounds, where the championship game is going to be. The Giants played the Bears, the same team they played in the championship game, and the Giants won 14-0. Let's see here. The following week, they went to Philly to play the Eagles. Now, the Eagles were going to starting to get good. The Eagles were really starting to become a good football team. So the Giants were on the road. They played the Philadelphia Eagles, and they lost 24-14 to the Eagles on Sunday, November 3rd. So now the Giants fell to 4-2. The following week, they played basically back-to-back weeks against the Eagles. The Eagles came to the Polo Grounds. The Giants beat them 45-17. The Giants could score some points. All right, 45-17. So now the Giants are 5-2. The following week, on Sunday, November 17th, the Giants tied the lowly Boston Yanks at home, 28-28. So now the Giants are 5-2-1. The following week, on November 24th, Sunday, November 24th, at home, the Giants played the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they would wind up winning 7-0, putting them at 6-2-1. Now, what happened the following week, the Rams came to town. The Rams beat the Giants on Sunday, December 1st, and now the Giants are 6-3-1, which wind up setting up that final game against the Washington Redskins. The Washington Redskins came to town at the Polo Grounds, and basically, if the Redskins would win, it would have forced a tie, and it would have forced a playoff game to see who'd go to the championship game. But the Giants wind up winning 31-0, and so that wound up becoming a moot point. Let's see. I mean, the Giants scored 3 points in the first quarter. They scored 10. They scored 2 touchdowns in the second quarter. They scored 2 touchdowns in the third quarter. The final touchdown in the game was an interception return for a touchdown. The Redskins had 5 turnovers. They threw 3 interceptions. So Giants would wind up winning. They beat the Redskins 31-0. So the Giants wound up 7-3-1, and the Redskins fell to 5-5-1. So that's what wound up putting the Giants in the championship game, their victory over the Washington Redskins. But now the thing is here, all right, there's always a story. The Chicago Bears of the Western Division wound up 8-2-1. The closest team in that division was the Los Angeles Rams, who were 6-4-1. So the Bears won basically by like 2 games, a nice comfortable lead. The Bears scored a lot of points. They scored 289 points, which led the league. But they gave up 193, so they gave up a lot of points. They didn't have a really stellar defense, so they gave up some points. But what do we got? The 1946 NFL Championship game was the 14th annual championship game of the National Football League, played December 15th at the Polo Grounds in New York City, with a record-breaking attendance of 58,346 people. The game matched the New York Giants 7-3-1, champions of the Eastern Division, against the Western Division champion Chicago Bears, who were 8-2-1. The Giants had won the regular season game 14-0 at the Polo Grounds 7 weeks earlier, but somehow the Bears were 7 to 10 point favorites. Somehow. This was the 5th and final NFL championship game played at the Polo Grounds, because the next time the Giants played a championship game, hosted a championship game, was in 1956. That was the first year that the Giants were in Yankee Stadium. And this was the 4th of 6 meetings between the Bears and the Giants in the title game. Let's see. Tied after 3 quarters, Chicago won 24-14 for their 7th NFL title, their 5th victory in 8 NFL championship game appearances. The attendance record stood for another 9 years, until the 1955 title game in Los Angeles, where the Cleveland Browns beat the Rams 38-14 in the 1955 championship game. But there's more. Bribery scandal. Oh, yeah. A couple players of the Giants got bribed to throw the game. The day before the game, 2 of the Giants players, Frankie Filchak and Merrill Hapes, were accused of taking bribes to fix the game from Alvin Paris. So Mayor William O'Dwyer subsequently informed Jack Mara, Wellington Mara, and Bert Bell of the police evidence against the 2. So they had evidence against the 2. They took a bribe to throw the game. Hours later, the 4 met at Gracie Mansion, and the mayor interviewed the players one at a time. Under questioning, Hapes admitted that he was offered a bribe, but Filchak denied being offered it. Several hours later, Paris was arrested. He was the one. Alvin Paris is the one that bribed the 2 Giant players, or he bribed at least 2. It might have been more, but there was only 2 that was known of that he bribed. So the guy who did the bribe, he got arrested, and during his police interview, he made a full confession to bribing the players. I guess both players. I don't know if he ever bribed anybody else, but he did bribe the 2. Hapes was suspended by Bell, so Hapes was not a super. It was he was okay player. It was nothing super spectacular, but just knowing that he got bribed. So Hapes was suspended by Bell, but Filchak was allowed to play. Now Filchak was. If we look at this, the Giants. Frankie Filchak. He was their leading passer. I get it down here. Here I go. And he was their leading rusher. He ran the ball. Well, Bill Paschal ran the ball the most for the Giants. Bill Pascal had 117 carries. Frankie Filchak only had 98 carries, but Frankie Filchak had 371 yards rushing. He had the most yards rushing on the Giants. And he was also the team's leading passer too. So they bribed. So instead of, if they had bribed like Sid Luckman of the Bears, their starting quarterback, maybe the Giants might have won. Maybe if nobody was bribed, maybe the Giants win. Who knows? But so Frankie Filchak, the Giants passer, and leading rusher, was bribed. Took the bribe to throw the game. So, but several hours later, Paris was arrested during the police interview, made a full confession to bribing the players. Hapes was suspended by Bell, but Filchak was allowed to play. During Paris's trial weeks later, Frankie Filchak admitting taking the bribe under oath. So before the game, he said he wasn't bribed. I wasn't bribed. But under oath, he admitted the truth. Yep, I was bribed. I was bribed. Now the game is tied 14-14 going into the final quarter. And I got this here. Let's see. They got a little it's like a little bit of I've gone all the way, but a holding call on the next snap took the ball out of stretch, and the Giants put it. Let's see, quarter number 4. Chicago moved to the New York 42 thanks to 2 Luckman aerials, one to McAfee for 18 and another to Jim Keene in triple coverage for another 12. Joe Osmanski, a dentist in the offseason, broke away for 8 and a first down on the 34. Luckman's next pass fell incomplete, but the Giants were guilty of unnecessary roughness to make the first down on the 19. The Bears had noticed earlier that the Giants backers were being suckered over the strong side and planned to take advantage with a pair called Bingo Keep It. So Luckman called time and ran to the bench. Now, he asked Hallis. Hallis said, now, replied the coach. Let George describe what happened next. Sid called the play. It began exactly as the previous ones. Sid took the ball, pivoted as though to hand the ball again to McAfee, who was already driving to the left behind a row of blockers. The Giants went for him. Sid put the ball on his hip, drifted around the right and made a touchdown. Nobody touched him. Nobody touched him, and that wound up being the winning score. Luckman had not intentionally carried the ball a single time all season. Wow. Now the Giants were behind. Now Frankie Filchak, the guy for the Giants who got bribed, took to the air only to have Turner pick it off at the New York 23. So Frankie Filchak, the guy for the Giants who got bribed in this championship game, threw 6 interceptions. The Bears went up 21-14, so the Giants need to score. So Frankie Filchak gets the ball, took to the air, and he threw an interception. Basically just trying to seal the deal, I guess. Let the Bears score one more time, and that'll put us out of our misery. So we'll wind up losing. So, but apparently, right after the Bears picked it up, Luckman gave the ball right back. Livingston grabbing his second interception at the Giants 13. So Livingston, playing for the Giants, intercepted the pass. Now he wasn't bribed, so he picked the pass off. So now the Giants had the ball at their own 13-yard line. Filchak squeezed out a first down on an over-the-top pass to gain some breathing room, but Sprinkle struck again with a vicious sack to put the ball inside the 20. Livingston's punt went only 27 yards to set the Bears up at the New York 37-yard line. They ran the ball 6 straight times, gaining 12 yards before bogging down. So Maznance kicked a 26-yard field goal to make it 24-14 with 4 minutes left. Filchak didn't give up, though, the guy who got bribed. gaining 20 yards on a quarterback keeper, but his next pass would be his last. Luckman, whom Hallis had rewarded for his TD by keeping him in on D, intercepted on his own 30-yard line. As the crowd filed out, the Bears ran straight ahead 4 times to exhaust the clock. Now, this is despite Phil Chalks throwing 6 interceptions, no one questioned his effort. Yeah, right. The Bears are favored by 10. The Bears won by exactly 10, so which meant nobody won. No bettors won. So if the Giants player Frankie Filchak was paid to throw the game. He even admitted under oath. The guy who offered the bribe said, "Yeah, I bribed him." Frankie Filchak under oath said, "Yep, he bribed me." Yep. So Frankie Filchak in the game throws 6 interceptions. 6 interceptions. Now, it says in that article there, it said, well, nobody, the Giants' best player, nobody questioned his effort. Well, sure. For 5, 6, well, you got the ball on offense, you could be running and knocking people over and getting up and look all mad, and completing a pass and then scrambling around and looking great and throwing another completion and getting the ball next, running people over and stuff like that. Then you throw an interception. Oh, well, no, I ain't throwing an interception. But, man, you see him on those 6 or 7 other, man, he was giving his all. Then they get the ball back, and he'd be running people over and completing passes and blocking people and going like a madman. Man, look at that guy go. Then he can throw an interception. So how much did, Frankie Filchak, his bribe, how much did it cost, in the game? There's 6 interceptions. How many were on purpose? How many did he really try his all? That's things you're never going to know. That the Giants, it was 14-14. Giants gave up 10 points in the final quarter, lost 24-14 at home. And the Giants' star player was bribed to throw the football game. And how much did he throw it? Well, you're never going to know. But all I can say is he threw 6 interceptions in the championship game. 6. So I said one of those things you're never going to know. But the Giants lost 24-14, and this will be their final championship game until 1956, when once again the Giants would face the Chicago Bears, and the Giants would be the home team. But this time it would be in Yankee Stadium. But at least next time they faced the Bears in the championship game was in 56. The Giants would win, which would wind up giving the Giants their 4th NFL title. But so, it was a very, very exciting season. The Giants, had another winning record, went to another championship game. They went to a ton of championships, 33, 34, 35, 38, 39, 41, 44, 46. They went to 8 from 1933 to 46. They went to 8 championship games. The problem was they only won 2 of them. But, a lot of good football, a lot of good players, a lot of good teams. 1946 was another good season for the New York Giants. And, but as I said, we're going to start noticing a little thing here. The Giants are not going to get back to a championship game until 1956. The Giants will go to a playoff game in 1950. The Browns would be tied at the end of the season to see who would go to the championship game. Unfortunately, the Browns would wind up winning that one 8-3. What a barn burner, huh? But so the Giants are going to start going, down, not totally downhill, but they're gonna start playing, not super spectacular football. And their coach Steve Owen, his time would be coming to an end after 1953 season. Steve Owen will be the longest. He was with the Giants from 1931 to the head coach from 31 to 53. He won 150 games, I believe it was. So he's got a lot, but his time will be coming to an end. But so that pretty much wraps up the 1946 season. Overall, it was a pretty good, successful season for the Giants. Once again, they got to the championship game, but as they did so many times back then, they fell short in the championship game. is what it is. But I'll be back again with the 1947 season of the New York Football Giants, which just happened to be the 23rd season in the history of the New York Giants. I'll see you then.